talking about is that when you capture a raw file, all the detail is there. And I can show you some images where most of the Lightroom experts would tell you it's a throwaway, but you can edit it in Lightroom. You can bring out the detail. It's and the reason for that is, as camera sensors have improved, they're able to capture more and more data, and raw files are just pure data. Well, Tom Hogan, in his very complete, detailed book on the Nikon Z9 mirrorless camera, reports that when recording a raw file, it's capturing 11 stops. But when we get our exposure in our camera with our shutter speed, aperture opening, and ISO sensitivity, you're limited to 5 stops. Well, just because the camera can only show us 5 stops doesn't mean that the detail in the other 6 stops isn't there. It is there. And Lightroom has the ability to bring it out.
Do you have some examples you might be
Sure.
willing to show some of that?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, that'd be awesome, because we'd like to learn, because I think a lot of people would love to avoid going into Photoshop if they didn't have to.
Most people would. Photoshop has gone so far away from the photographer and towards the graphic artist and illustrator and web designer. And I had the Adobe Certified Instructor credential for Photoshop, but after CS6, I stopped with that credential. And the reason is, in order for me to maintain that credential, I had to learn Illustrator and Dreamweaver and all these other programs. And you have to take a test, and the test became increasingly difficult for me just because I couldn't, I didn't learn all those programs to the extent that I needed to. So I stuck with Lightroom, which turns out Lightroom is far superior to Photoshop at bringing out detail in the images. And the main reason is just what I just told you about the detail being there in the stops that the camera can't see.
Is that is the new detail AI thing in the develop panel? Is that where you're bringing back some of that detail?
It's in the detail panel where we're doing it, but we're not doing it with AI, and there's far better ways to do it. In fact, some of the new AI is not as good as what we've always had in the regular basic Lightroom.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
And one of the problems is the Lightroom experts say that you should go to the basic panel in the develop module to get your exposure. Well, there you're limited to 5 stops, a dynamic range of 5 stops. So since we now know that there's a lot more stops being captured, we can get more detail, but not in the basic panel. We have to go and use the other panels, like the tone curve panel.
I got to see this, because detail is what we're after in the macro photography world. I mean, I'm using a printing Nikkor lens to achieve, maximum detail in the images that I generate.
Uh-huh.
It's everything. I used to be a large format photographer, and so detail is everything for me. So if you can show me how to get detail, you are my hero.
Well, I can show you how to get more detail, and even in one that has burned out highlights.
Well, I've been using so you don't use the linear, you stay with the Adobe color curve,
Yes.
and you don't see that makes the shadow part of that curve too contrasting, you lose detail, or you get that back in the tone curve.
You get it back in the tone curve. Tone curve is amazing with what you can do with color in your image. So, because in the tone curve panel, you have access to all 3 color channels, red, green, and blue. So you can work with just one channel and change the entire color of the image. I can show you that.
Yeah.
And
so you're just changing the red, green, or blue curves.
Yeah, it is, but there's all kinds of things that, for example, if you uh, had a red flower and you wanted to make it a green flower, all you would have to do is take the red channel in the tone curve panel, and there's a targeted adjustment cursor there. Put it in the red. If you drag up, you're going to get more red. If you drag down, you're going to get the color opposite red on the color wheel, which is cyan or green.
Yes.
I mean, so, and I can show you that.
I
So,
love it.
yeah. So,
Well, what is your background, since you're a different Dave Kelly? So I can introduce you, sir.
I think the other Dave Kelly is a Topaz guy.
Actually, he's a TK, Tony Kuiper.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
Light, what do you call it? Luminosity masking type stuff.
Yeah. My background in photography was I I retired, and like so many other people in 2003 took up photography as a hobby. And I was lucky to run in, and I do mostly wildlife, and I was lucky enough to run into some guys that wanted to help. Jess Lee out in Yellowstone. Uh, and then he told me, I went out and wanted to photograph a moose, and we spent a whole day, couldn't find a moose. So I came home and I got an email from a guy named Mark Picard who said, "Come to Maine, I'll show you a moose." So I went there, photographed all kinds of moose. He could call a moose in. He made a sound like a female moose, and then he had a bottle of water he'd pour into the pond, and he had every big bull during the rut coming over looking at him saying, "You're not a girl." And then he told me there's a guy in North Carolina I should meet, Chaz Glatzer, who is a Canon Explorer of Light. And Chaz and I hit it off pretty well. And once I became an Adobe certified instructor, we started running technical workshops together. So that's big. And I became an Adobe certified instructor for both Lightroom and Photoshop with about 2009. That would be the first version of Lightroom.
Okay. So, Alan,
Yes,
this
Dave.
is a different Dave Kelly.
A different Dave Kelly.
This is a Dave Kelly that is certified, Adobe certified in Lightroom, but
Right.
he's not the Dave Kelly from TK Actions.
Oh, okay.
He is willing to show us how to pull some detail out with Lightroom, and I personally would love to see it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, how in the world did I get the wires crossed, I wonder? These things happen. Dave, welcome, and thanks very much for coming. I really appreciate it. As I'm sure Bud's explained, we're a group of macro photographers, close-up photographers, and all of us are into post-processing, especially as it relates to the kind of high magnification work we do. And seeing as the whole thing revolves around proficiency in Lightroom and Photoshop, we thought that getting a Dave Kelly on would help.
Well, Dave took up photography actually in 2003. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir. Bought my first digital camera, the Nikon D100.
Oh, beautiful.
That.
And by 2009, he was Adobe certified in Lightroom and Photoshop.
Incredible.
Quite a.
Can you imagine how much stuff you have to know to get certified in those two platforms?
You just have to take a bunch of tests.
Sounds like medical school.
But Dave has told me that the tone curve is where everybody ought to be looking in Lightroom.
That's just one of the panels.
He is willing to give us a little show to show us how to pull more detail out of our images in Lightroom. And I think that would be a wonderful thing to do if you guys are good with that.
Oh, absolutely. Brilliant idea. Do you just want to launch right into that so that we don't keep Dave here longer than he wants to be? And then
he's going to entertain us for at least 3 or 4 hours, I'm sure.
Okay. So I guess I need to share my screen somewhere.
Absolutely, it's all yours.
All right, I can't find where to share my screen.
Should be a little green box at the bottom, maybe?
Bottom middle, just pick your screen and hit share again.
Okay. So Zoom will be able to record the contents of your screen until it
Yep.
is quit.
I'm recording the contents for YouTube.
Okay. Should I?
You can just hit OK for that. It's just warning you that we're recording.
Okay. Well, it just doesn't give me that option. It says later or quit and reopen.
Oh, yeah. If you've never shared a screen on this platform, if you just quit and reopen the program, come straight back to the same address, we'll be right here, taking care of some housekeeping while you do that. Okay, Bud, you're going to have to explain this to me. This was the same Dave Kelly whose name I got from the website.
He has a contact down there that is not Dave Kelly. It's I forget the name of his photography stuff, but that's the way I got in touch with him. Is at the bottom of his Zoom, way down at the bottom.
Yeah.
I have no idea, but we'll enjoy this gentleman.
Yeah. I mean,
Is that him
Okay,
sharing screen?
yeah, we got you sharing now, sir.
Shouldn't be there on Zoom, I don't think. See if there's another. Can you let him in, Alan? Or?
No, there's no waiting room. I think he's just if he's signed back in while sharing, then this can happen. So there we go. That's my link.
Yeah, he's sharing and he doesn't realize it. He's already on Zoom. He's trying to get in twice. There we go.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that.
We got flowers. He could be muted.
Doesn't appear to be. Let me double check that. Yeah, Dave, you are muted. I don't know if you can hear me, but your mute button's on the bottom left, far left, very bottom, where it says audio.
Can you unmute him, Alan, from where you are?
I don't think so. I think I can mute people, but not unmute them. Let me try. No, I can just ask. It appears to be actually, there you go, Dave, you're on. You got it.
All right.
Okay.
When we were talking before about bringing out more detail, I explained that when you I think the easiest way to explain it is that when you capture a raw file with today's cameras, because the camera sensors have been improved so much, they're capable of capturing more data. and a raw file is just pure data. Well, Tom Hogan, in his very complete book, a detailed book on the Nikon Z9 mirrorless camera, reports that when capturing a raw file, it's recording 11 stops. But when you get your exposure with your shutter speed, aperture opening, and ISO sensitivity, you're limited to 5 stops from dark to light. And that's all the camera can see. And since that's all the camera can show us, it doesn't mean that the detail in the other 6 stops aren't there. The detail is there, and Lightroom can bring it out. Here is a picture that I'm going to turn off the clipping one. This is a picture I just took on an African safari. And if we go into the, I'm going to move this over. If we go into the basic panel here and we try to use the tone sliders, we can get a little bit of it out, but now we've got to work a lot harder on, we need to do things like change the white balance on the image. And when we go down to the tone curve panel, we can lighten the picture a whole lot more. Now, this was taken with a ISO of 3200, so there's a lot of noise in it. So I can go down here to the detail panel and I can run Lightroom's Denoise and I can get rid of all of that. But prior to with just the 5 stops, we're not going to be able to get all this detail out. But the thing that I can show you is here's a picture that was taken with an ISO of 1600, 1/400th of a second at f8. If you look at the exposure in the histogram, it's as far to the right as we can get it. And there's no clipping or anything here. But we know if we push that histogram any further, we're going to get burned out highlights clipping in it. So we know we can't go into the basic panel and try and get more detail. But if we go down simply to the color mixer panel and use one of my favorite tools, which is a targeted adjustment cursor, the icon for that is here for hue, saturation, and luminance. And the way the targeted adjustment cursor works is if you put it in the image, I didn't pick it up. If you put it in the image, if you drag up with luminance, it's going to brighten everything, which isn't what we want. But if I just click and drag down, I got a whole lot more detail in that image. Where did that detail come from? It had to come from the 6 stops that the camera recorded, but that Lightroom can see, but the camera can't see it. So there's all kinds of things you can do in an image like this just with these other tools. What's happened is the Lightroom experts have said start in the basic panel and get your exposure. And then everybody goes to the masking panel. The masking panel is not, it sometimes isn't as good as what we had in Lightroom before. And we were talking about color before. If I take this picture here and I go to the tone curve panel up here, and I want to change the color of this flower here, I'm going to select just the blue channel. And then I'm going to take my targeted adjustment cursor. I'm going to put it in the flower and I'm going to drag down. Now I got a yellow flower because I took the blue out. If I take the green channel with my targeted adjustment cursor, I'm going to get a pink flower. So I have the ability to make some pretty major changes in color. Oops, that shouldn't have happened. But the biggest thing in the tone curve panel is recovering lost detail and bringing out detail. Get the picture up here. So here's a picture that most people would consider a throwaway. I'm going to turn on the clipping warning, and you can see there's a lot of clipping here. And if I look at my histogram, I can see that I've lost all 3 channels in this area where the red is, and because the triangle is white. I've also lost the blue channel in the background somewhere. And the reason I know that is because those triangles tell me. Here's how it works. If only one channel, well, first of all, if you only lose, this only shows you the red in the lost highlights or blue in the lost shadows, if all 3 channels are lost in the same area. If they aren't lost in the same area, then you won't see the red or the blue in the image. So you can see that the blue channel is lost, but we can't tell where it's lost. And the way I would find out where it's lost, I would go up to the basic panel, and I would hold down the Option key on the Mac, Alt key on the PC, and click on the black slider. Screen turns white. I got to reset this. The screen is going to turn white, and everywhere the blue channel is lost, you're not going to see the color blue. You will see the color opposite blue on the color wheel. So there it is. That's all the lost detail in the shadows in that image. If I go to the whites channel and Option or Alt click, that's where all the lost detail is in the area. So how do we recover that? We go to the tone curve panel. Let's select the blue channel, and I'm going to just make a slight movement down. I want you to watch this triangle, because when I make that movement down, triangle turns yellow. What that tells me is I recovered the blue channel. And here's how it works. If one channel is lost, you will see the color of that channel, red, green, or blue, in the image when you click on the whites or the blacks. If 2 channels are lost, for example, red and green, the triangle is going to be yellow, and like that one is. If all 3 channels are lost, the triangle will be white. So if red and blue are lost, the triangle is going to be magenta. If blue and green are lost, the triangle is going to be cyan. So you remember when I clicked on it before, and it showed me that everything was white because all 3 channels are lost. If I now click on the white channel, everything is yellow, which means red and green are still lost. So let's get the green channel, and we'll just make that slight movement down. Triangle's going to turn red. Option or Alt clicking on the whites shows me only the red channels left. So let's get the red channel, make a slight movement down. All the lost details disappear. The triangle is grayed out. But when we look at this, there's not a lot of detail there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the parametric curve, which is the best curve for adding contrast to your image. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the highlights and the lights to the left, and I'm starting to bring back a little detail. What I've really done is I have brought this image back into the 5-stop dynamic range of the basic panel. So I'm going to make just a slight movement with the whites, a slight movement with the highlights, and I'm going to make a slight movement with the exposure. All of a sudden, I've got a whole lot more detail in that channel, which formerly would have been a throwaway. So now what I've done, if you look at this triangle, it's now magenta, which means the red and the blue channel have been lost in the shadows. So I'm going to click on the blacks. That's where all the detail is lost. So I'll get the red channel, and I'll just make a slight movement up. And the triangle turns blue, which tells me the blue channel needs to be recovered. I get the blue channel, make the slight movement up. Now I've recovered all the detail. If I Option or Alt click on the whites, the screen is going to be totally black. If I Option or Alt click on the blacks, it'll be totally white. So that's one of the things that you never most of the Lightroom experts don't tell you about. And one of the things I was discussing before with Bud was that when the Adobe people brought out this wonderful Lightroom program, they didn't tell us how to use it. And there were a bunch of people who were very good in Photoshop, and everyone assumed because they were good in Photoshop, they were good in Lightroom, and they weren't. And in fact, one of the most prominent Lightroom experts says he never uses a tone curve panel because he's not a curves guy. It's curves in Photoshop. But to me, that's too bad. All of his followers don't use the tone curve panel, and you can see pretty much what the capabilities of that panel are. So he also doesn't, when he does a tutorial, he also doesn't show you, there are several that don't show you the histogram because they say they don't get much information from it. Well, you can see how much information I got from it. And I knew which channels were missing, and I knew what I had to do to recover them in the tone curve panel. So I don't want to take up your whole time here, but
No, this is great.
well, those are the only images I've got up now. I can probably find some more images if you want to.
Do you ever use the calibration panel for any reason?
Yeah, the calibration panel in let's do this. Calibration panel is the very bottom here, and you have access to the three color channels, the hue, saturation, and you can, by playing with these, you can change the color in your that's your image. For example, if let's say your camera wasn't bringing in purple the way you wanted it, you could come down here and you can move the hue slider for red and blue, and to get the color purple you want, and then you create a preset and save the preset as the user presets. Then during the import process, on the right the column of panels, there's one panel that says apply during import, and you have the ability to apply a preset which will be applied to your images, all your images as they're being imported. So you just would select your new color preset and put it in there, and then all the colors will come in, all the purple colors will come in the way you want it. Let me go up here. Oh, and by the way, this is the history panel. And with Lightroom, yeah, I think you know that when you go to edit an image, the image is, unlike Lightroom, the image is not moved from where it exists on your computer. In Photoshop, you move the image from where it exists on your computer to the Photoshop desktop, and then you put layers and masks and blend modes and so forth on it. And while you're doing that, you have a history panel, but you have to then save the image back to where it came from, or to another folder outside Photoshop, or you move it to a program like Photoshop. When you do that, you lose that history panel. If you save it as a PSD, a Photoshop file, you'll still have the layers panel, so you get an idea of what you did to the image, but not the order in which you did it. In Lightroom, this history panel is going to stay with this picture forever. And if I don't have to save it, there's no save or save as in Lightroom. I just go pick another picture to go to, and when I come back to this panel, the picture will be exactly how I left it, and the history panel is will be right there with it. And I can click on any one of the steps that I made, and it'll show me where the picture was when I did each of these steps. So
But your workflow using the calibration panel is different. How does it differ from what Dave's saying?
Um, if I could get Dave to go back to his white flowers,
go back to the white flowers.
please, sir. So on those white flowers, if I took the blue primary saturation at the very bottom of the calibration channel
Uh-huh.
and you slide it to the right,
Which one do you want to go?
the very bottom one.
Blue?
Yes. Oh, no, not the hue, saturation only. Slide it to the right and you see how it adds sunshine. Now you go up to the next saturation.
You'll get a little bit of saturation in it. Look at the green.
Yeah. But give it a little bit of sunshine. That's what I call this slider for
Oh,
me.
okay. Yeah,
But give it a little bit of sunshine.
there you
Then
go.
go to the next saturation above that and slide it, and you start to see the oranges pop. Okay. And then when you go to the next one up, the next saturation slider, no, not hue. Right there, yeah. You see how it's bringing detail into the flowers itself with color?
Yeah.
So I use it a lot of times. I told you I use the well, what do you call it? The profile, linear profile,
Yeah.
which helps me retain some of the highlight information in that linear profile. Then I will use these calibration sliders a little bit before I take it in and process it to stack it.
Hmm.
It gives me a little bit of color. If you go too far, then Zareen freaks out and you get all kinds of weirdness. But I like to give it a little bit of color before I start because a lot of the insects that we take pictures of have orange or, reddish legs, and this really helps them show up.
Yeah.
So,
You can do a similar thing with color grading. If you're going to use color grading, you should also go to the color mixer first, because what it'll do is if you take the targeted adjustment cursor and put it in an area here and drag up or down, you can see only the green is color is moving. So if you then go down to the color grading panel, and those, let's say those are the midtones, then you know that it's going to be this area here that's going to be affected. So you can increase, see what I did with by moving just the green channel?
saturation,
Yeah. It's really more important in the sky when you want to, if you've got a picture of sky in it, you want to make different, make it look like a sunrise or a sunset.
Okay.
Cool.
So there's a lot more information in there that you can pull back out with the tone curve.
Yeah. In fact, I wrote a book called Lightroom Classic Made Easy, and it covers all of this stuff.
Very cool.
Huh?
That's very, very nice. Yes.
It's on Amazon.com.
Now, how would you apply texture clarity to a flower? Would you soften them with it, or would you use it to try to
Oh,
enhance detail?
yeah, and that panel, the presence panel in the basic panel, there clarity will bring out a lot more detail in your image just by sliding. I don't much go past 50. If I want to see where I started with this picture, I just have to hit the backslash key and it'll show me where I started.
Okay,
If
good.
I want to see a before and after, I hit the Y key and it shows me the before and after. So,
Okay.
but the other thing is the dehaze will also sharpen the picture a little bit. And the texture will bring out just a little bit more detail in the panel.
Would you take one of those noisy images and show us how you get rid of the noise? You said it was better
Sure.
using the O way than using the AI
Well,
denoise.
In this situation, at ISO 3200, the denoise is the best way to do it. There are two other ways you can do it. one would be to use the legacy noise. You can take the luminance and slide it to the right, and you can see it's starting to get rid of some of the noise. And then again, in the basic panel, the clarity and dehaze will also help get rid of some of the noise. But no, that's not going to help. You can see that I have gotten rid of some of the noise, but not very much of it. The other way you could do it, just to make it easy, I'm going to crop this picture so I don't have to work so hard. If I take this picture into the masking panel and I select a brush and I make my brush giant, then I'm going to just paint the whole picture. Make sure I get everything in the picture. It's there right here. And then I'm going to go down the masking panel and I'm going to take the noise reduction all the way to the right. Excuse me. I'll add a little clarity and a little denoise and some detail. So you can see there's a lot less noise in there's still plenty of noise. The best way is still the detail panel. And if I'm going to put the head in the preview box here, put the eye in. And then I'm just going to click on denoise, and it's going to show me down here the before and what it would be like. See, that's all the noise now. And I'm going to click on enhance, and what it's going to do is it's going to get rid of most of the noise. It takes a while, though. Usually takes about a minute or two.
Mm-hmm. I've been doing this to most of my images prior to stacking them and getting great results. It just takes 2 hours to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's because it does it on each image.
Yeah. But it's remarkable. I compared it against the DxO RAW, and I thought that was going to be the cat's meow, but I think Adobe's got a better product.
Yeah, I like it. There it is. Quite a bit of noise gone.
Mm-hmm.
And if I wanted to, I could then go. I could go to the legacy denoise and maybe get a little bit more, get rid of a little bit more, and then I can sharpen it. And
Dave,
then,
why are you not able to use this sharpen to, I mean, the denoise tool after focus stacking when you're working with a tip? What is it about
the main reason for that is if you were to go up here to the photo menu and you select enhance, enhance will if I uncheck that, your enhance will give you quadruple resolution, which is what photo stacking is basically doing to it. And you can't use denoise if you on super resolution. I've used the super resolution on hummingbirds when I want to get real close in on the bird,
right,
and crop in close. And then the closer I crop in, the more pixelated the picture becomes. So I can then use the super resolution to bring out the picture, and then I can print it as large as I want.
Got it.
That's what you're doing with the focus stacking. You're creating, a whole lot more resolution with it. Want to see any more?
Anybody have any questions for Dave about Lightroom?
Well, thanks for putting up with me, even though I'm the wrong guy.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
for
you showing
coming,
us
Dave.
this. I'm gonna have to start playing with the tone curve and seeing if I can pull out more. And that makes sense that there's a
Well,
hidden resolution.
check out my book on Adobe. It's written, it shows you a screenshot of where you should be. And then it says, if you want to do this procedure, do this bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, step by step. It takes you through every procedure in life, including everything I told you here.
Did you give us the name of the book again?
Lightroom Classic Made Easy. It's got a
I
bear on
actually
the front
have
of it.
it somewhere on my bookshelf. I'll grab it.
Uh, it's I'll show you the book. I thought I had it here, but I guess I don't.
It's available on Kindle as well.
Yeah, it's available on Kindle as well. Okay. Well, thanks again. It was fun.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you for
Dave. I
thank you
appreciate it.
for presenting. That was awesome.
Okay.
Great.
Checking out.
Thank
Thanks.
you, sir. I still have a screen share going.
Yeah. I think I'm out, right?
No, I think you have to hit the exit screen share, perhaps.
That should do it. That is something I can probably do from this end. Apparently not.
Does it say at the bottom of the screen, does it say exit screen share anywhere in red maybe?
No.
You know, I think if you click the share screen again, it'll give you
Exit.
the exit button.
It's
Yeah, the bottom of your Zoom panel.
Yeah. That's it. Great. Well, thanks again, Dave. And for those of you who are watching this as a recording, yeah, I haven't figured out yet exactly what's going on. Bud, have you got a theory as to what I've done here?
no, sometimes the moon's in the wrong quadrant.
It seems a little improbable that Adobe would have two ambassadors named Dave Kelly.
Strange.
Yeah. Well, it was good of him to come and talk with us, and I'll see if I can get the other one on sometime.
That explains why the other one wrote me and told me he wasn't going to be here.
Yeah, it's except, yeah, it does explain that. It's very bizarre. Of all the things I thought might happen, I didn't think another Dave Kelly would show up. But all right. Do you, by any chance, have an update from last week, Bud? A recap?
I do.
Can we do that? If nothing else gets covered, I think we ought to cover
I
that.
can go through a few buttons that get us started, but let's see if I can get to the recap. Oh, not that one. Let's see here. I'm gonna have to shrink the zoom, I guess, and get to my desktop. Here we go. AfterStack. And number 5, and for recap, and we'll open it. Okay, Can you see that, or do I need to share screen now?
Share screen.
And we'll go to, I guess that's Keynote right here. Share. Share.
That's it.
Is it full screen or it look okay?
It is full
Okay.
screen.
So what we went over were blend modes. And if you go to this link, it's a Dropbox link. You can download that working thing so you too can have this blend mode thing to play with to show you what to do. And over here, I have given a cover sheet on the blend modes. So you turn the information's at the top. This red designates the text, which is basically the explanation on how to use it. Then you turn off the eyeball on the red, and then everything else works. The green one is where you change the blend modes, and you can see the contrast change in the right side of this thing. So I think if you play with the blend modes and you use this device, you'll start to understand how they work. So hopefully that will help, because we spent a lot of time on the blend modes. And we talked about hard mix and how you can bring those white hairs back a little better by painting them with white first and then using the black hard mix to come in behind them to clean them up. Now, the one thing that occurred to me is that you could probably, and I haven't tried it, fill the entire frame with white hard mix. Okay. It's not going to do anything to the black, but everything that's white would turn white. And then if you reduce the opacity until just the right amount of white was showing, you might not have to paint all those hairs white. You might could control them with just one slider. But do remember that hard mix is one of the special 8 blend modes that fix, or isn't that what it's called? Whatever's below opacity. I don't think it's flow. What is it? I'm blocking up on it. Anyway, this also will adjust the white. So when you're using hard mix is a black or white. It doesn't like gray. It turns it one way or the other. And so I'm going to try, and maybe I can give you a follow-up next time, of taking this whole frame when we first generate that mask, and we've gone around it with a hairbrush and we've got gray hairs. If I select the whole frame and filled it with a white hard mix, and then I reduced the opacity to where only the white hairs were showing, and everything that was trash that I wanted to get rid of, I kept slightly gray, because then I could come with a second select all with black, and I could reduce the black until it just made the trash go away. Does that make sense?
It does. Sounds complicated though.
It's just 2 buttons.
Yeah.
It might save a whole lot of time. Anyway, I'll give you a follow-up on that.
Okay.
But anyway, if you go to that and play with hard mix on a mask, you'll get comfortable with it pretty quick. It really works well. And the last slide I have was the masking workflow, which I've made in bullet points here. This is the one I told Allan. This is where you basically use the object selection tool or the subject selection tool, and you try both and see which one's better. And you create a mask. You make that layer, your target layer, active, and then you double click the mask, which opens the mask in select and mask. And then you use the hairbrush, which is over on the left, and you go around and you see what you can bring back. Make sure your output is set to layer mask, and then it'll return it to Photoshop with your improved mask. That's when you use the paintbrush on hard mix, and at a reduced flow, somewhere around 10% is a good starting point, sometimes less, sometimes more. And you try to whiten up all of the gray hairs without whitening up totally the artifact around the hairs. So you want the hairs to be white, but not the artifact. If the artifact is still in the gray zone, then when you change it to black, it'll take out the artifact quite easily. Questions?
But the hard mix bit, is the idea to try and reduce or even remove the sort of hand painting?
The hand painting is with hard mix, but what I want to try is to see if I can do a select all and do the whole frame and fill it with a hard mix.
Yeah,
If
so
I can
you
fill it,
sort of,
go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say, so hopefully you could sort of going around and having to touch up individual hairs and that sort of thing. Is the idea it could reduce or even remove that?
It might, yeah. If you were going to spend, say, 15 and 20 minutes trying to work on those hairs and you could do it in one fell swoop in a minute and a half, why not, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the understanding I'm getting. I mean, it's like that moth, by the way. Thank you very much, by the way, because I know the emails have got messed up. But those very light ones around the ends of the wings, you know, they were causing a problem. But if it could sort those out through the opacity on the hard mix, that would really help.
Well, I have your moth here. I was going to show if, with your permission.
And of course.
Any questions on the recap? I'll post it on Discord as I have the others.
No, great, great.
Okay, let me unshare here, and then I will go into Photoshop, share, and let's see. I think there might be a better way. Let's go up here to AfterStack real quick. And 5. And here. And open with. And now we'll share Photoshop. As soon as my wheel stops spinning. You got it?
Got it. Oh, wow. Nice.
So let me close this up some. So here's where we started. And that was the picture I got from Nick. And Nick wanted to know, and Alan had asked him to send it to both of us. I don't think Alan probably has had time to look at it, but I worked through it, and this is what I came up with. You know, it may be slightly exaggerated in color, but it makes it artistic, which is what my bottom line is. Nick had some blurring in between his slices. We got some banding, in other words, Nick. So you might need thinner steps next time. I don't know what size these steps were.
I'd be reaching a bit. I think I didn't even have the Castile M on it, and at 1x1, I think I just got the focus rail because it was all a bit of a panic.
Okay.
You can see it's on the front door and that sort of thing. So yeah, I wondered a bit whether my stacking was also needed work as it on it. So thank you.
I would have guessed that your step size needs to be cut in half and it'd be perfect.
Okay.
And let's see, you might want to, let me do this. Hang on. So this is the first thing I did with the mask, just so you can see it. And you see the little frills at the back end. Those were the ones that you had to work with to bring them out with hard mix. And you know, they came out pretty well. Some of them were translucent, so I couldn't totally make them white. And The rest of it, I just kind of goofed around with colors and stuff and, you know, detail work until we got to the very end. So anyway, I can, let me go to another Photoshop thing here I wanted to show you. Let's see.
All those layers came through nicely on Affinity, Bud. So if we were sharing files between us,
It worked good.
yeah.
Okay. I wanted to go and show you a little bit about the TK, which is what everybody had asked us to talk about this time. So I'm going to just hit a couple of buttons unless you have something, Alan, that you would like to.
No, I was hoping you would be prepared to do this if need be, so this would be great.
Anybody have any questions about the moth before I move
No,
on?
when you ask for questions about TK, I have one.
Sure.
When I went to the site, I couldn't find a price anywhere for it. Do you know where that is kept?
Yes, it's at Tony Kuiper's site.
Yeah, that's where I went. I could not find the price on his product.
Right now, it's till the end of this month, it's 25% off. If you use Dave Kelly's DK15 and you make a purchase there, you get 25%, not 15% off till
Okay.
August 31.
But do you know how much it is before the 25%?
I think it was $35 maybe.
Oh, is that all? Okay, all right.
I think it's about what I paid.
That's good. Okay.
I mean, I could try to pull the site up if you want.
Oh, I'll try again. I was looking last night and I didn't see it, but I could have missed it.
I think it's one of the, it's not on the main page. I think you have to go to the purchase tabs or something. It's
Yeah.
a lot of stuff that's free and then a lot of stuff that's like $10 or $30.
Yeah.
But the other one that's
Julie?
Yeah.
the other one is very recommendable is Sean Bagshaw's videos. He is so good at teaching this stuff. And of course, Dave Kelly's TK Fridays are unbelievably good. So if you would go and check out Dave Kelly's, I think it's called The Joy of Editing.
Yep.
He makes it easy and fun.
And Bud, the TK panel, is it the sort of middle one on your tools area with the 20 by 3 arrangement? That's all the tools you get, yeah?
Hang on, let me put this out of the way. No, there's a bunch of panels. I'm going to show you all the panels.
Okay, so more than one. All right, I'll shut up.
No, you're good. So this panel, can you see my cursor? I could probably put up, no, I can't.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah, I got you. You're following you around. That's fine.
So up in here in this area, this is called the multi-mask panel. This is where you make masks, okay? And masks are created by luminosity or by color or by zone, or the newer version can use blend if to actually make a mask. Because normally blend if is added to a layer, but it doesn't really make a mask. And Tony Kuiper's come up with a way to make a mask using blend if, which is really good. You can use it for dodging and burning and all sorts of interesting things. So what I'd like to show you, this area here, this long, colorful area that I'm kind of going through, can you see that? Those
Yep.
are all easy ways to do stuff you normally do in Photoshop. So if anybody doesn't know what an action is, and these are actions, an action is a small program that you create by saying, watch me click buttons, and then you hit save. So if I wanted to create a 4-layer thing that I used all the time, then I would use an action. For instance, if I do a black and white conversion, my top layer is the gradient map. Below that, I have the black and white adjustment layer. Below that, I have the hue saturation layer, and then I have the background. So I can go through that step by step for those 4 layers save it out as a black and white conversion with my name on it. And all I got to do is hit one button and it's all there. So that's what Tony's done. He's taken only what Photoshop can do. Sometimes it may take 20 steps to do what he can do, and he's put it into one button. So these are his actions, and they make life easy for you. For instance, I'm just going to show you this area right here. Can you see my cursor at all? I feel uneasy.
Yep.
I wonder if I can do it under annotate. Does that do it? No. Where's that spotlight thing on this thing?
I don't know where it is
I thought it was in annotate under. I just don't see it. No. Spotlight. There we go. Can you see it red now? My
yeah,
cursor?
still small, but yeah.
I don't know how to make it any bigger, but anyway, that's the best I can do to show you.
Okay.
I'm gonna come over here. To,
Try your bracket keys to make it bigger.
bracket keys. No, it's not working for me. Any other suggestions?
That was a square bracket, Bud, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. So like the brush one, yeah. So that, okay, that didn't do it.
You're not talking about parentheses, right? You're talking about brackets.
Yeah, the ones on the keyboard, the ones below the curly brackets.
I wonder if I could go.
Next to the P key.
Does your
Yeah,
scroll,
no, that's the ones I tried.
Right.
does the scroll wheel work?
No,
You sure it's not in settings? Let me check. Cursor.
I think it's probably in, I can't get to it though. I'm in Zoom and it doesn't like me to go there. Okay. See if I can go there another way. Hang on. I think it probably is under accessibility.
Could be.
I'm looking for pointer control, maybe.
Oh, yeah, one warning, Bud, on the I
No.
did have a play with these myself. It's possible it won't show up on Zoom. And there are some apps. I know you've had it before, haven't you? But when I was trying it, there was various accessibility bits I tried and just wouldn't do it. Show it on Zoom. You could see it like where it was doing it, but it wouldn't show you what you wanted it to in full. So it might not do that for us on this one. But you had that other way the other time, didn't you, where it was actually highlighting, putting a circle around it or something.
Let's see something. That's soft raid. Anyway, I don't want to waste all our time looking, but I don't know how to magnify that up. Anyway, right here.
I'll keep looking. You just carry on.
Okay, right here is a sunshine over a cloud icon. And what that does is it's the select subject. In this instance, if I hold down the command key on a Mac, that would be the control key on a PC, and click it once, it's going to create something for me. If I go to channels, it created something called Sky. Do you see it at the bottom? Anybody?
Yeah.
Okay. If I go to that same icon up here, I hold down the command or control key and I click it twice. It makes me a foreground. So I can get both sky and foreground that quick by clicking this icon and holding down the key. So now I have two different masks that I can work with. And the one next to it, the plus minus, gets rid of the active selection. So if I'm going to say work on this sky, it'd be nice to have a sky selection, you know, or if I'm going to work on the foreground and don't want the sky to work, then I can work on the foreground. So if I want to say make a luminosity mask, let me show you what a luminosity mask is, but I'm getting ahead of myself. This whole panel is basically actions. And if you hold down the Option key, Alt key on the, it'll tell you what things are. Do you see it down at the bottom? It says new layer.
Hmm.
Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
So as you scroll over them, it tells you what each of these icons does. Now I've let go of the Option key and it stays there. Okay. So you keep going. I may have to hold down the Option key when it gets over something. Went to the top. We see how it creates a black hide all mask. This one toggles between removing and adding a layer mask. So it tells you what each of these things will do. This one is a clipping. This one deletes hidden layers. So all of these things are actions that will perform the function. And when you get done with wanting to know what they are, you just click the X and it turns it off. So there's all that information. There's a second panel. You see this TK at the bottom? If I click that, there's a whole lot of actions here. For instance, if I want to clean dust, I click on this one and it makes cleaning dust easy. If I want to change clarity, dehaze, if I want to create a spotlight, a freehand vignette, I want to do frequency separation, I want to go between RGB and lab, I want to correct chromatic aberration, I want to add color, paint contrast, the Orton effect, Smart Orton. You can do all of these things, and all of these things are described on how to do them at Tony's site, or if you go and buy Sean Bagshaw's really good videos. They have taught me more. I bought the videos and it was worth every penny to me because you could go back and look at it again and again and again. So anyway, and to close that, you just hit the X and it's back to where it was. There is a second panel that's a fatter panel than this, but it has the same buttons. This is the one that you use with, you know, laptops where you have a limited amount of what you can do. So then we go up to the multi-mask panel, and the multi-mask panel is just this area right here. And the first one is luminosity masks. The second one is a zone mask, and I'll demonstrate these. This is a blend if mask. This is a color mask. Saturation, vibrance mask. If you have something like red flowers, for instance, that are too saturated, this is where you go. From last week. This makes an edge mask. I won't go into that, but it's really kind of cool what you can do with it. This is a focus mask. Imagine you've taken a picture of a horse and a young girl and the background is not out of focus enough. This will get you there. It's a great way to do it. And you can save out a depth mask, which is really cool. Okay. This shows you how many masks you have active. So if I click on that, it tells me I have all of these channels rather. Okay. So here's my sky. There's my foreground. These are some I did from before. Okay. X gets me back out of that. So let's take a look and see what a luminosity mask does or what it can do for us. When we click it, the first thing that happens is it looks at our image for luminosity. And this is everything to the right here are lights. They're looking at the lightest areas to focus on. Everything to the left is the darks. And down here are the midtones, which exclude both ends of the spectrum. So the blacks and the highlights are excluded, and it just focuses on the middle. So let's take a look I'm gonna actually, up here at the top, do you see where my cursor is?
Mm-hmm.
Watch the bottom of my image on screen and it puts up a grayscale. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a little strip at the bottom. That won't print, but it lets you have some idea of what's happening as you go through these masks. So that is what's known as a lights one. That's the normal luminosity mask if you clicked on the RGB channel. Okay. So here's lights 2, so it's going to get more restrictive, looking only for the lighter parts of the image. Everything that's dark will resist anything you do. Imagine you're adding, let's say, a color. So the only place the color is going to go is where the light is. The darker areas, black conceals, white reveals, and gray is, if it's dark gray, it's almost concealed. If it's light gray, a lot of the will go through. So as we get more constrictive, we go into lights 3. You can see what's happening in the grayscale at the bottom, that only the top end of the scale can see everything from about zone 6 up. If we go to 4, more restrictive, you only have the very highest lights, the clouds, 5 and 6. So that's the brightest areas of the image. So let's come back to the darks now. I'm going to darks 1. So everything in white is going to reveal. So I'm looking at the darker areas of the image. If you want to see what your image looks like, you see the double areas right above here. If you click that, it shows you your color image back to your mask. Color image back to your mask. So as we're looking at the mask, we still have the grayscale at the bottom, but look at it, it's reversed. Now the dark sides are the lightest, which means your mask is going to let the whatever you do go through the mask into your image from on the darks, but the whites are protected. So we go to the next constrictive, darks 2. You can see that I'm starting to get just the mountain range and everything else is getting dark. Sky's not going to have much effect. Darks 3, sky is totally almost black now. It'll get almost no effect, but I have the mountain ranges, which I can use. If I want to go through here and change the contrast on the mountain range, that's what I can do. If I go to a darks 4, more restrictive, you can see the grayscale at the bottom is only showing the darkest values, and there's 5 and 6. So those are the darkest values in the image, and as you can see, they're way down at the bottom on the right. So let's come back to a darks 2, maybe a darks 3. And if you're having trouble with a mask and you need color, you see up here the red right above it. If I click the red, where the red is where the effect will show through. So as I change, I can see that the mountains are going to be affected, the dark areas. So I can make those boulders on the left darker. I can increase all this texture by making some of the darks darker. Imagine a bug's hair that I can make all these hairs darker. And I'll give you a shot at that in a minute. And to get rid of it, you just turn off the red. You can turn off the grayscale. You can see your color picture. And you go back to your mask. So at this instance, if I wanted to do something to, let's say, those mountains, what does everybody think needs to be done? You want to add some darks into those or make a little more contrast in the sides perhaps? So if I wanted to do that, I'm going to go back to the mask. I'm going to go one more. Now then, this area all up in here is about making the mask. You see these with a light background? These are for modifying a mask, and these with a black background are for outputting whatever you create. So if I want to output and have a curve or an output to a layer or output to a brightness, hue saturation, or color grading, that's what you do. So let's, for instance, in this particular image, I'm just going to show you how it works, but I'm not going to do anything with the mountains because I have a better thing I want to show you. But as I this is the levels that I just opened to modify the mask by clicking it right here, okay? And so as I bring the whites in, everything's going to get whiter. Remember, it's a mask, so we're not looking for detail so much. We're just trying to make everything darker except those mountains. You see how I can confine it? Everybody good with that?
Hmm.
Is that too confusing?
Nope.
So all I'm doing is making the mask whiter and more contrasty. And so everything that's white will let the technique show through. If I want even more, I can bring this middle slider down, bring the white in a bit more, maybe nudge it back to get rid of those mountains or most of it. So that would probably work for me. Now, if I want to paint and get rid of those mountains back there totally, right next to it, you see in the mask modifier level, there is a black brush. If I click on that black brush, make it a tad bigger, I can paint out all the stuff I don't want. So I'm still modifying the mask. Okay. I can paint out the water. Okay. So I can really hone down to just having the mountains. So now I can do color work on the mountains. I can do anything I want because I have the actual picture, which gives me, feathering in between areas, as long as I don't get it too contrasty. So let's back out of here. I'm going to exit out. And what I want to do is show you what Dave Kelly does as his starting arrangement most of the time. I'm going to come back down here. So what I did first off was just bring it up with a camera raw filter in Photoshop and gave it just a little bit of color. Okay, make it where it's a good place to start. And what he generally does at this point in time is he'll go up and he will open the luminosity mask and he will choose a mid-tone mask. And a mid-tone mask looks like that. And you go, how can that possibly be useful? Well, the black areas are either white or they're shadows. In other words, this is mid-tone. So both ends of the tonal spectrum are excluded from this mask. And then he goes and chooses the color grading. So this pops up. This is normally not what you can find in Photoshop. It's available because Tony has figured out a way to bring it, some of the concepts from Lightroom and Camera Raw into this arena. So we're going to go up here. You have the blacks, which are the shadows. You have the midtones and you have the highlights. And so when this is centered, everything is zeroed. But what we're going to look at is this bar right below it. We're not going to color shift so much at first. We're going to look at the gray and we're going to lighten up a bit of our mountains. Okay. Now, if I come into the blacks, I can increase the contrast in those mountains because it's very selective. If I turn the layer on and off, you can see what's happened. Okay. Now the sky, perhaps I don't want the sky, right? So I would need to intersect this mask with a sky mask. And that's a more advanced. I didn't want to show you that and get you confused right off the bat. But you can take our sky and exclude it from this mask, right? So right now the sky is changing, as are the mountains, but that's what he does is midtones. Then he can go to the brightness and he can take the white ones and bring them down to some degree like that. The color mask, let me show you a zone mask, I guess, first. So in the zone mask, you pick out what zone you want to work on. So let's say I'd like to darken this area back in this distant mountain range in Patagonia. And you can see that that mountain is pretty bright, and we'd like to embellish it. So this at the top now is what the zone looks like. You can have zone 1 through 9. And where I clicked is running out at about 3.5. Okay. I can take this and change the zones by sliding it. You have to let go to see your effect. But you can see how the zones are changing in the background. So somewhere about there, it gives me a nice bright area that I can look at. You can also use these sliders. The one on the right side brightens everything. The one on the left side tightens up your selection. So if I put that grayscale at the bottom, do you see the grayscale again? And I start to tighten this zone. You see how that grayscale is tightening down? And it's centered right on that rock in the distant mountains. This rock here. And you can see what's happening at the bottom in the zones. So that tightens it down. Now this one brightens it. So as I move it, I can make my mask whiter. So whatever effect I want to show through will show through in this area. Okay.
Hey, Bud,
Yes.
can you control the sliders with the keyboard?
I don't think so. No. There's
Like
no
if,
way to-
if
there's
you
no way
clicked
to-
on one and then used your arrow keys, would that work?
Click on it and use the arrow keys.
No?
Nothing.
In Mac, you need to have full keyboard control turned on to do that.
Oh, so there's a way to do it?
Yeah,
Okay.
under accessibility, keyboard, full keyboard control, but I don't recommend you turn it on. It
Okay.
messes up a lot of other things.
Gotcha. Okay. So one of the things that we could do here is save this as a mask. Okay. So let's go here and this one adds a mask to it, I believe. This should save it. Let's try it. And we'll go into channels. Did not. I probably have to output it to one of these things. So let's see. Oh, here it is, save. And I have to name it. So I'm just going to call it, I'm going to call it rock for lack of anything else and say, okay. So when we look at channels, here's my rock. You see it at the very bottom. So by using that button, you can get things like you want, and then you can use them later. So let's come back to layers because I want to show you what I'm going to cancel out of here since we've saved it. What I want to do is to, where am I? Down here. Yep. I'm just going to do a regular curve. And I'm going to make the curve darker because I'd like that rock in the back to be a little darker. Build some contrast into it. It's obviously blue. I can get rid of blue by coming into the blue channel. If I pull it down, it'll make it a little bit more yellow and get it back toward normal. I'm not going to be overly careful, but you can see I can reduce the blue. So I've got a curve down here. And so I've got what I want done. I'm going to make it even darker because I want to go back to the main channel. And I want to darken it down quite a bit so you get the full effect. The color's off, but don't worry about the color. I'm trying to show you how this works. So now that I have a layer, it's down here at the bottom. It has a white mask. One of the things that makes it very easy with this is you come up to this black mask looking thing right here. Can you see where I am? If I click it, that mask turns black. It hides everything. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I would like to paint through a selection. So I'm going to create a selection by going to channels. And I'm going to command click, I guess it'd be control click on a PC. When I command click it, it loads my selection. Okay. I'm going back to layers. If I want to hide those dancing ants, you can do it with Command H, or you can click this little red box here. This little box, it turns it off, but because you have this dancing line up here and the pink and green around here, that indicates you have an active selection. Anytime you see this, you have an active selection. It's a nice visual reminder. Okay, so I have a selection. I have a black targeted mask, and we've made it dark. And so I'm going to paint through it. So when I paint through a selection onto a black mask, I have to have white as a foreground paint. So I'm going to get my brush, and I'm going to start painting that dark through this mask with everything else protected. So I can start painting here, and you can see how I can add shadows into these mountains because I have a luminosity mask. And when you look at the mask where I painted through a selection, you can see what I got. Is that confusing? I like doing this a lot because what you do is you create a change. Let's say I'm looking at the sky and I'd like to darken up my clouds some. So I can go to, you know, what do you call it? A curve. And I can darken down that sky a bit. Let's see, I've still got an active selection. That's what happened. Okay. Create a new curve. Okay. So if I want to darken down the sky, if I scroll over the sky, you can see where the dot is over here on my curve. You can see it's sort of in the upper area there. If I click it, it'll leave me a mark. You see how I left a mark? So I can take that and pull down on it. You see how the sky is darkening down? Okay. I can then go and take and make it a black mask. And then I can paint through a selection. So let's say I have a sky selection that I want to load. I go to channels. I'm going to load the sky. Command click. So only my sky is going to be where I'm going to paint. I'm going to go get a paintbrush with a white foreground, and I'm going to paint at a lesser flow rate. And I'm going to bring in some of these clouds and make them a little bit darker and more defined. So the whites are protected, and it's just letting me work on the dark areas in the sky. So this is the power of using the luminosity mask to protect what you don't want to paint over. If you tried to darken that without some protection, your whites would get all grayed out. Question.
Why could you not just do that with a simple linear gradient and just, I mean, get 95% of the way there without even going into Photoshop?
No, you can. This is just when you need it. I mean, the normal tools in Photoshop, I don't do this on everything I do. You know, I only do it when I can't do it effectively another way. This
So
just
what
gives
would be
me
the typical image that you think would be difficult or impossible to do with the regular tools that we're used to? What would that image look like to you? A lot of contrast or a lot of overlapping colors.
Well, let's say you wanted to make the wave shadows darker.
Okay.
How would you approach it?
I'd probably start out by dropping the slider, the shadow slider in Lightroom and see what that did. That should darken that range of tones. And that might be all I'd need if all I was trying to do was make the waves look a bit darker.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I guess that's my point is when does this become more than just a way of getting finer control? When does it become really important to save the picture?
I use it on all my skies because I intersect between a sky and, let's say, mm, a darks to mask. So I'm looking at the dark parts of the sky, but I don't want any effect on the midtones or the brightness. Now,
Okay.
perhaps you can do that, in Lightroom with a slider. There's 1,000 ways to do everything, as we all know. So, but all of my skies, I like the delicate feeling it gives them when I do landscape.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I mean, I can get as much contrast with just a regular curve. But a lot what Dave will do is he will select out all these tones. He'll put it on a curve with no plans to bend a curve, but he has a mask, and then he'll change it to multiply and reduce the opacity till he likes the way the shadows look.
So I think it's you use these techniques when there's a zone or an area of an image that you don't want. Like if you tried to darken the water, the area where your brush is right now would also get you would lose any detail in it if you did a overall adjustment.
That's correct.
So by using techniques like this, you can really refine where you're making changes. To
Yeah,
me,
but
it feels like when I was working in a darkroom, with dodging and burning. It's very localized as opposed to an overall.
Yeah, so
um,
luminosity masking is not used very much for global effects. It's for
yeah, but I'm not talking about global effects in Lightroom. I'm talking about using the masks and whatever's available to protect those areas Larry's talking about. I'm having the same feeling that I had the first time you showed me this panel, Bud. It seems overly complicated to me, and it seems like there's already tools to do most of this that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, Alan, I'd agree, but I think that's just the principle Tony's got hold of. But what Bud's shown us is that when he's stepping through it, it's where I've been recently with that moth and one or two other things like the luminosity mask. It's getting rid of a whole number of steps that you have to do. And when, like with the mask, even like the simple one with painting in on foreground or background with black or white, it's very easy to miss that you're not using the brush with black or white. And that toolbox, as a basic example, having that button to immediately touch, and it sets the brush and sets the white or sets the black, and removes that bit. But the luminosity mask I'm seeing, it's taking care of a number of steps that I think I'd probably count about half a dozen steps that I'd have to walk through in Affinity to get to where that does it in that one button push. And creating those masks as well, Bud, what you did with the selecting the sky or selecting the foreground. That's another one where I was thinking, yeah, I know how to do that, but to do it, I've got to set the mask. I've then got to set the area. I've got to invert the mask, possibly even play with channels and that sort of thing. And with one button on the toolbox, it's done it all for you, and there it is. So you can get on with the actual editing
Yeah,
on things like the luminosity mask and that, you know, specifying your area where you want it, not having to spend too much time creating it.
fair enough.
So what I use on insects and stuff, Alan, if I want to say increase the contrast around the follicle that the hair on, say, the body of the insect comes out, I can focus on that little black area with a zone better than any other tool I know how to do, and make the contrast against the body, you know, stand out, because you can focally increase that contrast because you've
Sure.
captured that image right there. So I use it for detail work. You know, I bring up light areas, dark areas that are too dark. I add contrast to them because I can focus on them. And when I paint on them, painting through a selection, for instance, you know, I can bring whatever color I want. I use it on that lab, you know, thing I showed you a couple of times ago, how you can make a smart object a lab. Then I'll put a mask on it, and I've got that colors. If I want to bring up feathers in a bird, you know, there's no bleed over. I don't have to be careful.
What about you, Julie? What are you using it for?
Well, I use it like Bud does to very um, target a specific color or luminance level. You know, 'cause I'm like, especially like if I'm doing astro work, I might want to only be working with, you know, a particular color to work, and trying to use the Photoshop's color select is not always easy to get the entire range of what I'm looking at.
True.
So, and like with a lot of Photoshop or Lightroom tools, um, you know, you could do it, you know, with many steps, or, and sometimes this tool works better on some images, but not on others. So it just, you know, sometimes you bounce around until you get the, what works for what you're doing, and what works on one image isn't gonna necessarily work on
Sure.
another.
Sure.
So just being able to be flexible and say, okay, you know, when I've done landscapes in the past, this has helped, you know, like sky, you know, correction. But other
I
times,
see it as a lot more powerful tool for landscapes. I do some landscape stuff, and I can see its application there. I'm
yeah,
still
yeah,
losing some of it in macro though.
yeah, in macro, you know, but again, if you're targeting a color, or a, or if you have something that maybe like a blown out a little bit too much highlight on something, or too much shadow, being able to target in that shadow area, bringing it up to the other intensities is
Sure.
just, it's a delicate, it's a uh, you know, so like on this, if you wanted to really increase the black, or really select out the black so you could put a different background in there, it could be a lot easier in some ways to do the selection this way uh, than to refining masks, because you get about 95% of the masks done just using these tools.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So on this insect, here's a mask over here that I made using luminosity. And I used the color grading tool up there, and you can see that by changing the tones, I was able to, you know, to bring the contrast, this guy to look sort of like that.
Makes you glad you're not a cicada, doesn't it?
Yes. And then this one, basically, you see the yellow dots on the back, Alan?
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh,
I
nice.
basically,
Okay.
I used luminosity to basically focus a color mask on that. And this one is just correcting an area I didn't like. And then,
And you think that would give you better targeting than just using the yellow slider in saturation in Lightroom's control color control? Because that's
I'd
what I'd
like to,
do. I would add some some yellow into those spots in Lightroom.
No, it does, but it does the whole bug.
Right, but yeah, I mean, it might lighten up those orange legs a bit, sure.
Right. No, I mean, when you'd use the hue saturation, unless you do a black mask and paint it into the areas you're interested in, it's global.
Right. But presumably, I'm looking at the photograph and I'm figuring out where the other yellows that are going to be impacted are, and
Right.
whether or not it's going to make any difference. Like in this case, I may bump up the yellows to get their back spots brighter, but then I might drop the oranges a little bit to make the legs more natural looking, even though it would slightly change the hue a bit. That's the kind of thing I do simply because it's quick and I'm already there.
I'm not into quick.
No, I know. Not a good argument there for me.
But, there's more than one ways to approach everything.
Sure.
I don't have a complex schedule like you do, and I'm not trying to hurry. I've got time. I can work for 2 or 3 days on one bug and I'm happy with it. I'm trying to squeeze everything I can squeeze out.
I get it. I understand and I respect that. But I'd love to know from the other folks who are using this. Diane, are you using it? You seem to have some experience with a lot of these tools.
I'm not sure she's still on.
Okay. All right. Well, it's quite all right. Who else is using this panel?
I've used it, although I use it a lot less than I used to.
Oh, okay. Why are you using it less?
Well, primarily I was using it when I was doing senior photos. And it actually made me faster, not when I wanted to go slower. Just for handling the selections, like like background replacement, and this was before all of the AI background replacement masks. So
You think that is now quicker?
I don't know. I haven't really done portraits since they've upgraded all their masking, but that's the other part of why I'm doing it less.
There's
Okay.
a hot mic on.
Somebody's on.
Who's got their mic on?
It's Diane.
Okie doke.
So yeah, I'm also using it less because of the tools in the last couple of years, in particular,
Right.
in Lightroom, have gotten much better.
Yeah, it's not a, save all. I mean, it's a thing you use when something else doesn't work.
Right. I guess I'm absolutely willing to try it. I'm trying to hear the voices of the people that I know who
Sure.
who are using it, and what am I missing? Why?
I think it comes down to is try, you get an image and try, everything, just sample and say, okay, this gives me a better starting point, and this time this tool gives me a better starting point. And sometimes it comes down to what are you trying to do? Are you working on the background? Are you working on getting good edges? Or are you trying to like bring out a particular color that was muted? But using these tools, sometimes it does kind of get you in there faster. But yeah, you can go in the Photoshop way of, color selection and edge refinement and all that stuff. And other times, sometimes that's faster, and sometimes these tools with a little bit more finesse can be faster or more elegant, and you're not doing as much cleanup on the mask.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Good.
When we get-
Good
when we-
argument.
When we
think
get the real Dave Kelly here, we can ask him the same question.
I think that was a real Dave Kelly. Now you.
I wanted to show you what happened.
Not the right one.
Oh, he was the real one. I want to show you what happened when you go to lab and back on this guy.
Okay.
Can you see the difference?
Do it again.
Look
Oh,
at
yeah.
this. Look at
Yeah.
his wing. Can you see the wing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then when you go to the wing, look at the detail. You're talking about those hamuli?
beautiful shot of the hamuli, yeah.
But look at the detail you can get. All of these rich colors, if you go in and bring those colors back from LAB.
They're pretty nice.
But anyway,
Pretty nice.
that's about all I have. I just wanted to show a couple of the buttons. I probably use this luminosity masking or color masking or, the blend if mask on nearly every image that I create anymore. But I use curves, I use blend modes. I mean, I use it all. So it's not all about luminosity masking and TK. It's just a very convenient way to do some complex things. And the actions that he has in this side, if you want an Orton effect, I mean, it's a one button push and it's beautiful, If you want a blurred background, you go to this focus thing up here, you focus on the bug. Say somebody took a picture on a leaf of a live insect and they want to blur the leaf a little bit. That's what you do.
Well, for $35, it's probably worth a try.
And it's 25% off right now.
Hey, bad. I was just going to add that.
The other thing to also that I thought it was great at, when you're working in Photoshop and trying to do non-destructive editing,
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard to do that manually, to remember to create the layers and do that organization. And when you use this plugin, that housekeeping of non-destructive editing gets done for you when you use the actions.
Does it create smart objects automatically?
Well, if you push a button, yeah. This
Well, I mean,
button, let's see, where is it? I think it's
presumably some of the actions would involve creating a smart object first.
this one right here. You see the down at the bottom, smart object?
Oh yeah.
So all you gotta do is come right here. This one will duplicate it. This is dodge and burn. So the gray half means you get a 50% gray layer with soft light. And this one means that it's not a gray layer. It's just an invisible layer with soft light. Same thing with the dodge and burn. So he's really worked it out quite well. I mean, you can come down here and expand a selection, contract a selection, invert a selection. S&M, you know what that is, right?
No, I don't. I've never heard the term.
Okay, that's select and mask.
Oh yes, in that sense.
So anyway, that's all I have for you guys.
All right.
I mean, but just to say, what you've got there in that kit is, I'm looking saying, yes, I could do that in Affinity, but I'd have to set up macros to do it.
Right.
So it can do that, but I'd have to do all that work to work through all the steps to get to the mask. So, 25% off $35. I wish there was someone who'd done it for Affinity.
And really, look at Sean Bagshaw, because it's 25% off of his stuff at the same time.
Which Sean Bagshaw is that?
On the TK website, you can buy videos that like step you through all these panels.
Okay.
He'll go through it button by button to show you how to use it. And, he has several workflow things, but I think the button by button is worth it. And it's maybe $40. I don't know. And 25% off is $30.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure I get the right one.
Yeah, but just try to keep all that in the brain.
Yeah, it's all on the TK site.
Yeah,
Okay.
but just try to retain it all when you actually get into Photoshop.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why sometimes I use two computers, one to show the video and one to do the editing.
Understood. Well, good timing, Bud. Thank
Bud,
you
how
so
do you
much.
get
And
the 20?
I apologize to everybody who came on expecting to see the other Dave.
Yeah, but this Dave did some things I didn't ever see before in Lightroom, so
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
it was good.
I don't know how that happened. I'm going to go back and follow my email thread. I mean, I was on the YouTube channel getting his address, so
this guy, I liked what he showed us on that, recovery and such. That was,
absolutely, yeah.
it was not a wasted
No, it wasn't wasted at all. I think with the linear profile and what he showed us, there's detail in there to be had.
Sure. Indeed. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for coming, and have a great weekend. I'll get this video put up in the next day or so for anybody
Bud.
else who wants.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the TK website, and it says the 25% off is for them to donate. Is there another 25% off?
no, yes, there is. Whatever you put in the, I think in their basket, your cart gets 25% off if you use the DK15. If you
DK.
use that promo code.
Oh, okay. I didn't see the promo code.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's from Dave Kelly's website. He's an affiliate or something. He gets a little bit of money when you do that.